United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we could pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. And we'll start today's session with Positively Carroll. Anybody have anything for Positively Carroll?
It's above freezing and the sun's out. Next.
I like the first part.
I just want to remind people, Saturday is Wreaths Across America, and this is going to be, I think, at 10 cemeteries this year across the county. Last year it was one at the Deer Park, and today it has grown. It is a ceremony to remember, honor, and teach about veterans and what people have given up their time as to remember everything that's going on and teach the younger generation about what's happening. But if you can, try to attend. It's at 12 noon everywhere, and at Arlington also, and it's a tremendous event. So if you get a chance to get out at one of the 10 cemeteries around the county, it's a great event to attend.
I'd like to add to that. In my district, I'll be at the New Windsor St. Luke's Cemetery for the Wreaths Across America as well. So if any of my constituents are interested, they can come at noon to St. Luke's in New Windsor.
I can throw a stone and hit you. I'll be at Uniontown.
Try not to hit me.
He's not that accurate, don't worry.
No, it'll be way off, trust me.
If I can just add one thing, yesterday I had the opportunity, I serve on our governor's workforce development board, and led by Secretary Schultz, Secretary of Labor. We talked about obviously our workforce and building our workforce here in the community and highlighting the community colleges, opportunities to work together with the workforce development entities across the state. So I look forward to sharing some of that with the community college and also with our workforce development folks here in the county. But it was definitely a great opportunity, again, highlighting opportunities for our county. So,
Just like to highlight something that was in the paper. Lynn Davis, the Executive Director of the Carroll County Youth Services Bureau, received the Sullivan Cannon Award. This award is recognizes someone dedicated to going above and beyond in the field of human services. So congratulations, Lynn.
Yeah, that's good. And while we're on that topic, I had the opportunity to attend Manchester's Town Council meeting. What's today? Wednesday, Tuesday? I think Tuesday evening. Anyway, their Director of Public Works, Don Knott, is retiring after 32 years of service to the town of Manchester. One of the great things about our 8 towns is the local involvement of the citizens that actually either grew up there or certainly live there to make our towns great places to live and work and play or whatever. So Don's a perfect example of that. So congratulations to them. And one of the great things they did over there that evening, they brought everybody back that had ever worked in public works in Manchester. There was about 14 guys.
Both of them?
No, it was about 14 of them. It was a ton. I wish you would have been there, Dick, because you probably knew a lot of those guys. But some of the older guys were back. Yeah, you probably taught all of them. But that was a good touch. So congratulations to Don Knott. He's not going to be a stranger. He's one of the officers of the Manchester Fire Department. So he's going to still be in that community. But congratulations to him on 32 years with the town of Manchester. And kudos to the Carroll Community College. I think most of us were there for their Starry Night. Most folks would say that's a big party. And while it may be classified as that, it's important to remember that all the proceeds go to the Community College Foundation. And what do? They provide scholarships to students who can't afford to go to college. So maybe along the same theme that you were, Commissioner Rothstein, I'd like to thank the Community College for all that they have done over the years with the Starry Night. And I'm quite proud of the fact that about 4 years ago, I partnered with them, I being the president of the Pleasant Valley Fire Company. And just an example of what the great things are. The fire company's donated about $65,000 to the foundation now, and we've provided 4 scholarships to students that are pursuing careers in public safety. So that's the kind of thing that the foundation does. So hats off, applause to the community, Carroll Community Foundation, for all that they do. And certainly they're being run by a great individual, Steve Wance.
And
The other
You
Wance.
gonna go with that?
We'll go with
You
the
got-
good
you're gonna
that-
go.
That's
Come
a good
on,
Wance.
come
That's a good
on! I'm
Wance.
setting you up. Let's go.
So much for public comment.
And it was great
Positive with
entertainment.
Carroll High.
It was.
Yeah. It
was very
Absolutely,
good.
You
yeah.
let your hair down. It was good.
I did let my hair.
You did.
What here?
It was a great night, and the band at the team was fantastic.
Yeah.
One dancer was a little questionable. I figured the guy was in the band, he had more rhythm, but I'm not going into that right now. All right.
Wow. That
First
hit me-
item.
hit me right here.
First item, release the FY18 audit and comprehensive annual financial report. Mr. Rob Burke. It's going to be a very interesting 15 minutes, I'm sure. Can you introduce who's with you, Mr. Burke?
That's fine, I will do that.
All right.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
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 I'm joined by Ms. Catherine Welch this morning. She's senior staff with Cone Resnick, the county's audit firm. And, yep, I was leaving an open spot. Right on cue, Mr. Dan Kenny, the county's engagement partner with Cone Resnick. And here this morning to publicly release the county's fiscal year June 30, 2018 audited financial statements and comprehensive annual financial report. So as you know, the county ends its fiscal year June 30. Since that time, we've worked with Cone Resnick on a financial audit of the county's financial statements and closed the books, and pleased to report results there. I'll let Cone Resnick go into that in more detail, but pleased with the outcome. The audit is a requirement of state law, and so this puts us in compliance with that by year end here, and is the basis for several reporting requirements that the county has to fulfill to state government in the form of an audited statement, as well as the uniform financial report, which is the way that they measure state county jurisdictions across the county have to report to the state, as well as the single audit that's required for use of federal grants, and many other of the financial entities. The credit rating agencies certainly use this financial information in their review of us annually. So it serves many purposes. It is a very comprehensive document, as it says, obviously deep into the finances, but also a lot of statistical and demographic information, a lot of it over a 10-year period. So it's a good single resource for much of the historical data of the county's finances. And if you ever, looking through it and have any questions or need any more detail.
So on nights I can't sleep, I'll read this.
Not suggested for pleasure reading, but certainly is a good resource when needed, and I'm glad to work through with the board. And I will be back in front of the board. I'll schedule some time next month in January to come in and give some of the snapshot of the highlights of the finances in terms of debt position and pension situation and our fund balances and so forth. As you head into a new budget cycle, this can kind of tell you where we are before you launch into where we're going. So I'll be back with that. So with that, I will ask Mr. Kenny and Ms. Welsh if you have any comments or would like to address the board. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I'm Dan Kenny, partner with Cone Resnick, here to present the June 30th, 2018 audit for Carroll County. We have given to you a few documents, which we're going to go over this morning. It's the Independent Auditor's Report, the Report on Internal Control, the Report on Compliance with Major Programs, and then those charged with governance. So the first item will be the Independent Auditor's Report. Indicates we've audited the entity as of June 30th, 2018, and for the year then ended. And then under management's responsibility, management is responsible for fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements, and we believe that evidence that we've obtained is sufficient and appropriate to render an opinion. And then if you look on the bottom of the independent auditor's report, it talks about our opinion, and in our opinion, the financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2018 are fairly presented. And if you go to the next page on the independent auditor's report.
Yeah, I didn't present it separately. They have it in the,
Oh, it's
in the
document?
capper.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, we're now on page 14 in the capper. Okay, so within the capper, on page 14, the independent auditor's report on the second page, so on the required supplementary information, this is required by Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and included in that is the MD&A, and then all the other schedules related to the pension and the OPEB. And then the other information on page 14 talks about the introductory section, the supplemental section, and the statistical section. And because you receive federal funding, we're required to issue a report on internal control, and that's what the last paragraph talks about, and that's in accordance with government auditing standards as well. So now we're going to go to page 219 of the CAFR, and this is the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting. And there's two areas: one, internal control over financial reporting, and then also compliance, compliance and other matters. And within that document, on the third paragraph, it indicates we did not identify any material weaknesses. And then under compliance and other matters, the last paragraph indicates that our test disclosed no instances of non-compliance. Okay, moving on. Page 220. As mentioned in the independent auditor's report, you received federal funding. As a result of that, we're required to test your major programs and compliance with those programs. So on page 220, it just indicates we've audited the major programs as of June 30th, 18. Management is responsible for compliance with respect to those federal programs. And then our responsibility is to express an opinion over the compliance with those particular programs. And in our opinion, the county complied in all material respects with those federal programs awarded. If you go to 221, this is similar type of concept where it talks about the internal control over compliance, and it's over specific compliance related to the programs on the schedule of federal awards. And once again, this report also indicates there were no material weaknesses noted with respect to compliance over those major programs. Okay, now, pages 222 to 225, this is your actual schedule of expenditures of federal awards, so it just notes all the programs you've received. And then 226, because you have those programs, you have to have notes regarding those particular programs. That's on 226. And then 227, if you get bored and don't want to read the whole thing, if you go to 227, this actually summarizes basically everything that I said. It talks about the financial statements and the fact that your independent auditor's report, you received an unmodified opinion or an unqualified opinion or a clean opinion. And on the internal control letter, as noted, there were no material weaknesses or no significant deficiencies that were reported. And then under the federal programs, which we just went over, once again, no material weaknesses, and there were no significant deficiencies reported with respect to the programs that we tested. And then these are, on 227, it identifies what programs we specifically looked at. And then you'll note on the bottom, it says audit qualified as a low-risk auditee. The answer is no. The reason the answer is no, if you turn to the next page, on the prior year, page 229, you had findings on page, it's on 229, but in the prior year, you had two findings. One related to capital assets, which management corrected in the current year, and then a finding relating to recognition of grant revenue, which management corrected that in the current year. So because you had the findings in the previous year, it technically doesn't qualify as a low-risk auditee, all that means is we now have to test more of your CFA. Instead of just testing 20% of the total dollars, we have to make sure we test at least 40% of the dollars. So it doesn't cost you any more money, it just costs us more time.
And how long does that have to take place?
Great question. So you have to have, you can't have any material weaknesses or any findings for 2 years. So next year, you'll still have the same thing. We'll have to test at least 40% because of the findings in 17's audit.
Okay.
Okay, and then 230, once again, this was a finding on the CFA, and management corrected that as well. So I am now going to turn it over to Catherine Welsh. She's a senior associate with the firm and worked on Carroll County, and turn it over to Catherine.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'll be sharing our required communication with governance, which is required by auditing standards, AUC Section 260. This standard requires us to communicate to you as commissioners certain significant matters and findings that may have occurred during our audit. We're required to discuss significant audit findings and matters. There was one new policy adopted during the current fiscal year, and that was required by Government Accounting Standards Board Statement 75. This statement required that the OPEB, post-employment benefits other than pensions, change some of the accounting and financial reporting that's required, and it makes the reporting more applicable and similar to how the pensions are reporting. So prior to this, there wasn't a net OPEB liability, and going forward, there's going to be a net OPEB liability on the books.
Right, and that's also mentioned in your independent auditor's report on change in accounting principle, the fact that you adopted. And that's similar to, way back a couple years ago when you adopted GASB 68. So same type concept.
Yep.
So
That's okay. So this year now, the CAFR is showing the net OPEB liability as well as any deferred inflows and outflows and OPEB expense that might relate to that. And the county engaged Bolton Partners to perform an actuary evaluation of the OPEB plan, and they determined that this resulted in a net OPEB liability to the county of $119 million, about. All other accounting practices and policies stayed consistent year over year, so there was no other changes. An integral part of the CAFR is management's estimates. And there was two big significant estimates that are in the CAFR. The first being the landfill post-closure costs, and management uses an engineering firm to help them come up with this estimate, and we've audited the inputs to this calculation. The second and third most sensitive estimate is the net OPEB and the net pension liability calculations because they're based on an actuary's estimate. And we have also audited those inputs. The most sensitive disclosures in the CAFR are related to the landfill post-closure costs and the OPEB and pension, which can be found in the basic footnotes to the financial statements. We are also required to disclose other matters related to the execution and completion of our audit, and we're happy to report that there were no difficulties working with management, and they provided all requested documentation that we needed. Next, attached to the communication, there's two schedules. The first attachment is all of the potential and known uncorrected misstatements that we identified during our audit. They're either classified as factual, which means we know that they were wrong, or projected, which means we know that there may be an error based on our audit samples, and we've projected it across a population to determine what could be wrong. None of the items that are on that attachment were either individually or in the aggregate materially misstated, and they don't materially misstate the CAFR. The second schedule is a schedule which summarizes the audit adjustments that we found that management did correct. and those related to revenue and receivable in the grants fund that were not materially misstated, and then the landfill liability calculation and the airport grants.
Can you expand on those two things? What did you find?
Sure. As we were evaluating the inputs for the landfill calculation, we had a few questions about the inputs to the calculation based on how much of the landfill had already been closed. So we went back to management, and they took another look at it and reevaluated, and they changed the inputs a little bit based on that. And then related to the airport, there was a grant awarded in FY19 related to the expansion of the runway project, and there was a little bit of revenue that was recorded and recognized this year that shouldn't have been recorded until next year when the grant was awarded. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So management provided us with a representation letter on November 20th, which is the date of the CAFR report, which they said that they provided all information to us that was requested, and it's all true and accurate. And to our knowledge, management has not entered into any consultations with any other accounting firms for a second opinion. We are required to disclose any other audit findings or issues, of which there were none. Next, we're required to disclose our responsibility to the information that is attached in the CAFR that we may not have specifically audited. Dan mentioned that the other supplemental information, and we note that it agrees to the audited information within the report. Finally, we're going to issue a separate letter to management, which contains recommendations for any best practices that we may have come across during our audit. These didn't rise to material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. They're just best practices for internal control, and we'll be providing that to management shortly. This concludes our required communication. Do you have any questions or comments?
Maybe that last part, you're going to be suggesting best practices.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a lengthy?
No.
It's just a few items that you
Yes.
that
one
you
or
see
two.
fit that maybe we could switch to a little bit that would make it a little.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So basically, from this report, it's pretty good.
Yes, it was very good.
When you look at it, I mean, we have a few little tweaks to make, Rob does, but not anything earth-shattering, and citizens of Carroll County should be fairly happy with what's,
They should be very happy.
should be very happy, okay?
Yeah, and the fact that you didn't have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and you corrected the ones that you had before, speaks for itself. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that's key, is that you identified problems, we've come up with solutions from the government, and we're fixing those problems. So, yeah, I think there should be a higher level of confidence, in moving forward. So thanks.
We're always skeptical. That's our job. It's great that you did it, but next year's a new year's.
Yeah, you numbers guys.
But that's also why you keep it on for 2 years.
Sure.
So you're, it's not just a 1-year fix, but you're going to continue to see this, and that's why that 40%, sampling is important to keep. I want to say keep us honest, but keep us on track with good practices. So I appreciate it.
And keep in mind, this is an audit of the entire county,
Right,
finances. So we looked at Rob, and we point fingers sometimes at Rob, good and bad. But there are many, many hands that go into not only receiving all the county money and spending all the county money, but accounting for all the county money as well, whether it be grants or other revenues. So Rob and company does an absolutely wonderful job. But this covers every aspect of county government. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to share appreciation for colleagues, many departments. The auditors spend time with the areas that oversee the grants, and a lot of times in human resources, and work with IT to identify that our IT systems are in compliance with good practices for for tracking financial information. So it is across the board. I appreciate the support of the other agencies. I also like to recognize and appreciate, I think I have some staff in the back row there that do a lot of the legwork behind getting the information that Catherine was mentioning and pulling it together. I recognize this is, dry and not everybody's cup of tea, but it's required. And as you say, when all's in good order, we can take these few minutes of your time and get it squared away for the year. Appreciate the working relationship with CohnReznick. They're great to work with again this year. And again, if you have any other questions, I'll come back again more with what does it mean to us. We'll hit that a bit more next month.
I just have one question. And during your report, you said one of the things was that we hadn't contacted a second company to audit or look for.
Yeah, so
what
that's a great observation. So what that means is if there's some transaction during the year that the county has that they talk to us about, and let's say there's a disagreement, like they don't agree with how we're viewing it. Sometimes people, because they have relationships with other firms and or individuals, they'll go out and seek that and say, hey, this firm said this. And if that happens, we're required to report that to you. Okay. One, to let you know we had a disagreement with management, and two, to let you know that, hey, they consulted, with somebody else. So.
Good point.
All right.
No, that's fair.
Thank you.
So, lastly, for me, insert bragging here. I remain, and as do my colleagues, very, very proud of the fact that we now have a AAA rating across the board when it comes to the three big financial institutions that do a lot across the country. And it goes without saying that also is a perfect example of the tremendous staff and everyone concerned that makes that happen here. So can't say that enough, and whether it's from the audit standpoint or whatever, that is really something to be proud of. So again, I try to insert that everywhere I go. So because that's really important.
Good thing.
And the three of us have been sitting here for 4 years, and talking about, gosh, we wish we could get that last. Guess what? We did, and it's as a result of the work that everybody does here, and I think that includes you guys and what you've seen about the practices that occur here. So,
providing transparent, quality financial information to the credit rating and to the bond community is at the core of that rating process, and this is just one piece of that. So,
yeah,
we appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
No action necessary. With your approval, we'll go ahead and move forward and begin to distribute. The statements will become available on the county's webpage within the next day or so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we move on to request approval to use term contract with Pro Shot Concrete Incorporated for 3 culvert rehabilitation projects, Doug Brown and Deb Butler. And maybe even Jeff is coming up,
Yeah.
the big guy.
Thanks.
Oh, I like pictures.
Pictures.
Thanks. If you have pictures, I improve you this.
Thank you.
Wow.
Good morning, Commissioners. Here today with Acting Deputy Director Doug Brown and Bureau Chief of Engineering Deb Butler for the presentation here today for the request for approval for the use of Pro Shot Concrete for a term contract for the rehabilitation of 3 of our culverts. Before we discuss the details of the 3 individual culverts to be rehabilitated, please allow us a moment to explain our culvert rehabilitation process. Engineering staff performs inspections of our culverts along with our bridge structures on a 2-year cycle, and Debbie, thank you for that information today. As our staff evaluates each asset, they have to make the determination when a structure is approaching deficient to remove and replace or perform in-place rehabilitation. Here to provide some of the details on this program, let me pass this along to Debbie and to take it from here and also explain what you have in front of you with the pictures of the projects that we're going to be working on.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
After we reviewed these 3 locations, and I'll just tell you where they are real quickly. The Bear Run Road is the first photo, and that's west of Westminster. Roarbaugh Road and Hoover Mill are both in the northeastern portion of the county. They're large pipe arch structures, and the Roarbaugh and Hoover Mill, as you can see from the photos, have a lot of deterioration and rust that's developing along the spring lines and the bottoms of the culverts. So what this work entails is cleaning out the sediment that's in there, welding some wire fabric to the sound portion of the culvert, and then spraying concrete on it. Shotcrete is what it's termed by. The Bear Run culverts, because they're also experiencing some dislocation of the joints around the top, they will be completed the whole way around. So it's one's just the bottom, two of them are just the bottom, and one is the whole way around.
Can you go back later and do the entire top after the bottom's been?
Yes. Actually, on Bear Run, one of them already has a paved invert in it that we did quite a few years ago. And these culverts are all over 30 years old. I mean, for as long as I've been here, we've never replaced them or done anything to them. So they're in structural soundness of the bottoms.
What's the life expectancy of the repair?
It's a good question. I mean, I would expect the ones we did on, the one that's done on Roarbaugh Bear Run was, oh my gosh, probably 25 years ago. And that's still sound.
Okay.
A couple questions. How many culverts are there in the county? I mean, we're talking 3. Well, yeah, I mean, are we talking thousands? And the reason, to follow on that question, I don't need the exact number, is to prioritize the work of these culverts are done through an inspection process.
Correct.
And then from that inspection process, you say these are the ones that are in dire needs of repair. You have a feel for life expectancy of the culverts themselves, but in other words, it's an act-react approach in dealing with these culverts. You don't have a priority list of 1 through N of which ones are going to be fixed first. It's really a inspection process. Yes, these are in repair. These are in dire repair. These are like the must. I mean, does that make sense? And I just want to get the assurance that you do have that process in place.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, these 3 are considered structures, large structures. So they are part of our bridge inspection program, which inspects all of our 155 or so structures at least every 2 years, if not earlier than that. We get all kind of information back. We use the state highway consultant to do that work. It's actually a federal mandate that anybody who owns structures goes through this inspection program. And once we get the results of our reports, then we can determine, as you had mentioned, which ones need to be replaced, or which ones can we make repairs to that will be more cost effective than replacing the whole thing, and less involvement with the public. This can be done with the roads being opened. There's no utility relocation. We'll still have to follow all the MDE permit requirements that we have for these 3. So there's just less disturbance to the environment and to the traveling public, and also cost savings to do it in this fashion. And it will, provide a good, long repair.
And then communications, when you're fixing these culverts, if it does disrupt traffic, you are sharing that to the community, obviously, I won't say obvious, as soon as you build a schedule to work on that culvert in advance, so then the community knows which detours to take, or which, to be less frustrated in traffic while these are being in repair.
Yes.
Okay.
We provide weekly updates that are published from both the Bureau of Engineering and the Bureau of Roads, which everyone in the community, particularly those that sign up for Civic Plus, plug for that, they'll get our complete list of any road projects that are coming up within the next week. So it's done on a weekly basis. And then any long-term projects, we would always work to get the detour plans out ahead of time. But as Debbie said, the plus with these, they're working under you. So there's no disturbance on the top of the road.
Yeah, and I feel like I threw the softball up there. I get those reports,
Yep.
and I appreciate that.
Sure.
Again,
Yep.
to ensure that if there is, I don't want to say community outcry, but if there's
Absolutely.
concerns,
Mhm.
that, hey, this is, like you said, a place to go to get that information.
Yes,
So
sir.
I appreciate that.
And we've had a successful program of getting out to the public on a regular basis, any briefings, and even in some cases, if something's going to be detoured or there's some major concerns, we'll do door knockers to also hit the residents on a one-on-one basis. We do that with some of the pavement preservation projects.
Right.
And we also do that with a lot of our utility projects, because on the same list you have for flushing, but then if there's a concern or an issue that's coming up where we have to shut down a water line, same thing. Door knockers, public notices, stuff on our website.
Also the
And-
mobile signage.
Yep.
Will be when that's necessary if
Yep.
it's
How
Okay.
much
Many
does
ways.
shot,
Good.
Try to reach out many ways.
No, absolutely. And again, we can't do it enough. We
Right.
can't continue to share. These are places to go to find the information
Absolutely.
before there's the disruption.
Right.
Again, to alleviate any chaos or concerns. So I appreciate that.
And it's always in like any other policy, procedure, or process that we have, it's always it's always a moving process. And
Fluid.
it's
Of course.
fluid, and if something changes or, something doesn't work, we make the quick adjustments, and, we put the team together in order to, enhance a process in order, so the public is further notified.
how much does Shotcrete save us compared to total renovation? You have any estimate, any thoughts?
Yes, you can see the prices per site. Bear Run Road is $57,000, Hoover Mill was $42,100, and Rohrbaugh was $56,300. If these were replaced in kind, they would be in the $500,000 to $900,000 price range. So it's a significant
Yeah.
cost savings to make this repair and still, extend the life of the structures.
And much of that, Commissioner, was exactly what we just talked about. To replace, obviously, we're removing the road, we may have to close the road, come up with detour plans, and other issues.
Okay.
And this should take ProShot 6 to 7 weeks is their estimated time to do the 3 sites completely. ProShot is a company that we have a term contract with. They are pre-qualified to do work in the county. We've worked with them quite a bit over the past few years making these types of repairs. They're very conscientious and very helpful. So, and just to point out, the second page after the pictures, where it talks about culvert rehabilitation, that's actually from their website. Just kind of shows you a before and after of how they're making the repair.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
That I recommend the Board of Commissioners approve the use of ProShot Concrete, Inc., term contract for the 3 culvert rehabilitation projects.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Commissioner.
very much.
And thank you for the visuals.
I love the pictures.
Great.
Keep
Yeah.
bringing pictures, it'll be
It's
much
like we're
better.
in school again.
And it's like, you got like one of the top 5 Christmas ties in the building today, I think.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Very nice.
I'll try to ramp it up next week too.
Yeah.
Where'd
Do
you
your best.
find it at?
This one I've had actually for a few years, but I have some actually play music also.
Need something in District
I'll be
3?
right
Well,
back.
save those to yourself.
That was for next week.
God.
It doesn't have to be friendly with the
Y'all-
Public Works people.
Y'all want a hug or anything? or-
Okay, next, request for approval, Next Generation 911 Readiness Assessment. Mr. Campbell and Jack Brown. Good morning.
Can we list that?
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
One quick thing I'd like to add, there was a wonderful question about the coordination and the communications about some of the work. Something wasn't brought out, that group does a fantastic job of coordinating with emergency services. When there's an extended
Yeah.
detour, they vet it through the local fire chief, they respond if there's concerns about the proposed road maybe not be the best choice, et cetera, but could not ask for better cooperation, input, and opportunity. So hats off to that group for that effort.
No, that's awesome, and I appreciate that comment, one, giving them the kudos, but also working together and getting the word out, so thanks.
Commissioners, Mr. Brown and I are here today to ask for your concurrence to award a contract to Mission Critical Partners to complete a next generation 911 readiness assessment. Just a little bit of background on how we got to where we are today. Next generation 911 is something that we have been planning for, trying to prepare for, probably in earnest for a couple of years now. It's not a new concept, but it's something that we have tried to really start to focus on much more so in the last couple of years. To that point, we believe that the next best choice for Carroll County, the next best step for us, is to retain MCP, as they're known, Mission Critical Partners, to conduct this, as I like to call it, a soup to nuts assessment, so that we can see where are we right now in our efforts, where do we need to go, and probably as important as anything is develop, and I'm going to steal a phrase from Jack, a strategic roadmap on how to get us from where we are to where we need to be, the most cost-effective, efficient, timely way. So that is exactly why we are here today, to ask to be able to retain this subject matter expert. They are widely used, widely recognized, statewide, region, other county jurisdictions. So we're very fortunate they've made this offer to us and are willing to do the work for us. So we respectfully ask or request authorization as a director to be able to execute this agreement. It is fully funded. No additional monies are required. You are not making any kind of an obligation. What they'll come back with is a report of recommendations. So it gives you that roadmap without having any obligation in any one specific line item.
Were other firms contacted to provide this service?
With all due respect, Commissioner, our personal knowledge of Mission Critical Partners, knowing that they're involved on a state level, national capital region, et cetera, there is no doubt in our mind they are our best option. And we went to them, we cleared with our folks in procurement that this was our option. They have insight others don't because of the other work they've done, and we want to take advantage of that.
This is already in the budget for this year?
Yes, sir.
You're just
Fully
coming
funded.
before us because it's above what you can sign off with that
That's
coming
exactly
next?
why I'm here,
Right.
Commissioner. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I appreciate the fact that it was single sourced on how you did it, because your confidence, and we have confidence in you.
Thank you.
Making that decision. There's always the concern when you single source and not
Absolutely.
bring it out for bid, and so I'm always looking at the same question as
Absolutely.
Commissioner Weaver asked. What's the timeline of this assessment?
It's a great question.
For this individual?
The proposal does not have a deliverable date in it. What it does have is time allocation for the different components of the scope. So when we added up those, it looks like it's approximately a 9-week process. I simply say probably 10 to 12 weeks, simply because look at the time of the year this is going to be accomplished, inclement weather and things. So I'd rather promise further on and have it come in sooner. So I would not be surprised at all for this to be a finished product sometime in March. But I'd say if we maybe look at April 1 to give them, let's say, a 3-month period, if we move forward, that would definitely give them sufficient time, unless we have some extraordinarily bad weather or something like that, because there is some travel involved, and they come in and meet with folks, do some of their assessment work, come here.
All right.
Any other questions?
How about other jurisdictions, Scott?
Pardon?
Other jurisdictions, are they using,
Yes, sir.
MCP
Frederick
or
County,
not?
Howard County, St. Mary's County are three that come to light. The
Right.
National Capital Region, State Numbers Board had them do a cybersecurity assessment.
That goes,
County,
I
Virginia,
I wanted to bring that up because that goes to the question. While
Yes,
I
sir.
certainly agree with these two
Great
on
question.
that,
That's why
I wanted
we
to
feel so
make
confident.
sure that everybody knows that MCP does a tremendous amount of work around the state, and it's pretty much front and center and in your face now because of the Next Gen 911 talk.
Absolutely. I
So-
would simply say Mission Critical Partners has unrivaled staff, folks who have retired from careers in wireless communications, running 911 centers, contract negotiations. They have a very, very impressive staff. The fact they've done the work for so many other jurisdictions, statewide, jurisdictional, or local jurisdictions, regional, all levels. We just, without any question, feel they are in Carroll County's best interest. They are the subject matter experts, and without question, unparalleled in this field. And we are anxious to do this work with them.
Did they just give us the price of what it's going to be to do this?
Pardon?
Did they just dictate the price as such, or?
No, sir. We spoke with them about the type of assessment work we want it done, and actually, to their credit, They actually revised their quote and lowered it from their initial assessment. They gave us the opportunity to review and vet that. We weeded out some of it, and this price actually was something that we, for lack of a term, I'll use the term negotiated, but not in the sense of like a contract negotiation. We worked with them, what it would include, what the cost would be, et cetera.
Can't piggyback with the rest of the state and come up with a reduced price.
Well, this actually, one of the opportunities is they actually are I'll use the term, some other contract vehicles, maybe it's the right term, procurement vehicles, which is part of what we vetted with Mr. Myers, that allows us to join into this. So they actually have done work with other jurisdictions, and I believe have the price that they have provided us reflects the fact they already have some of the insight that one of their competitors would not. Some of the work that has already been accomplished, some of their awareness, some of the state level initiatives that they have been hands-on involved in that their other jurisdictions, other consulting firms would not be. Just adds, Commissioner, to why we feel they are clearly our best choice.
And remember too, it's jurisdictional specific, much of these requests. So some of the things that we're looking at doesn't necessarily mean that Howard County is going to be looking at that, or the.
Yes, sir. Good point.
So the price is based on what our needs assessment is. So it's not a blanket. Okay, well, we'll do this for everybody across the board. It's price specific based on our needs specific. So I understand I know where you're going, both of you. I get that, but I'll tell you that. I mean, not that I'm gonna come out on a limb here and say that these are the guys and nobody else, but because of the fact of what I've seen them perform already with this next gen 911 stuff, for lack of a better term, these guys are it. I mean, they've got their hand on the pulse of what the needs are around the region, if not state.
Statewide
So
rates.
this is a good fit. These guys are good and they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
So,
again, and I appreciate
that's
that.
my 2 cents.
No, and it's really valuable. I mean, the confidence in what you're sharing and also what you're sharing makes it very easy for me to say, yeah, this is the right solution. The, prudent part of me is to say, is it competitive? Has it been single sourced? How do you gain that confidence in a single source like this? And you share that, so I appreciate it.
Thank
you. So the intent is to get the report back late March, early April?
Yes, sir.
Is the intent, okay.
And part of the proposal is not only a report, but a presentation. Our initial response, that would be that we would vet it as staff and obviously make everything available to the board. That's just one more element of this. Not that we can alter the recommendations, but we'll have input on how it's presented, the format, et cetera, the timing. Again, I believe an outstanding opportunity to do something extremely important to the benefit of the county.
Yeah, tell them to take their time.
About 4 years?
And I say that with all due respect, because hang on when you get the report back.
Yeah.
This is a really, really critical project moving forward, and it's going to be another challenge for us fiscally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Correct.
So it's going to be important.
All right.
You good, Commissioner Weaver?
As good as it's gonna get.
Okay. I'm going to make the motion that the Director of Public Safety be authorized to execute the proposal for MCP as presented.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to proposed legislative changes and operating manual updates with Mr. Dave Browning and Keith Benfer.
Sorry, Jim, just, right.
Oh, do we have public comment on that?
Yes, we have a public comment.
All right, I'm sorry. We'll go to public comment on this last item first. I'm sorry about that. You guys can still come up. It's fine.
Well, no, it's easy.
Yeah.
If you want to. It's not required. Okay. I'm not introducing you a second time. is all
I
I'm
might
saying.
want to wait till I'm done.
But Dave deserves a second introduction. Look at
Their
it.
ears will feel better if they wait till I'm done. I'm ready, thank you. Well, good morning, Board of Commissioners. I'm Mary Kowalski, and I am at the meeting as I'm trying to attend as many of the meetings as I can, just because I just want to be involved. And I just think there's a real dearth of, a lack of, as you might see, I might be the only person talking here on this issue. And this is an issue about alcohol, about establishments. I don't know. Here it is. Discussion/decision, proposed changes to the rules and regulations for the Board of Licensed Commissioners. They're requesting permission to change some of the rules, and it has to do with alcoholic beverages. And so I just really think it's important for citizens to be outspoken, even though sometimes it's uncomfortable, et cetera, et cetera. So, I was just reading in the newspaper yesterday that we have an opioid crisis. And it actually said in the paper, it sort of combined statistics for alcohol overdoses and opioid overdoses. It said 67 in Carroll County. I cannot fathom that, having grown up in Carroll County. 67 overdoses on alcohol plus opioid overdoses. And I know that I'm seeing here possible 2019 General Assembly bills supported by the board, and it has to do with mandatory counseling for patients prescribed for opioid, maintenance drugs for opioid dependence, mandatory detox counseling, opioid 6-day supply list, and all these things that we're doing legislatively. But we need to be really sure that what we do legislatively matches what we're doing on the ground in terms of the public's access to alcohol. Is it appropriate? Now, we have a proposal here. And by the way, I'm giving my input before we get the public information from the staff people, which puts me at a little bit of a disadvantage because they can say things that are like, well, Ms. Kowalski was, with all due respect, she was misinformed about this, she was misinformed about that, she was misinformed about C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, all the way to Z. She's just one misinformed individual. And so it's a little bit, puts me at a disadvantage for me to be up talking before I get to hear their informational presentation. I'd like to request that that be changed in the future. But I did meet with one of the staff people. He was kind enough to meet with me, and I was not convinced that this should go forward. This is a request to decrease the requirement that 10 residents put their name and address and say they're okay with a transfer of this establishment into their vicinity, their community, their district, to sell alcohol. It could be a bar/restaurant. They only have to sell 60% alcohol. I think the citizens need to know.
Thank you.
So we need to not allow this to go through.
Okay, thank you. Now, Dave, come on.
Morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to take you back a little bit in time when the alcohol laws in the state of Maryland, not the state of Maryland, but in Carroll County were first enforced. I happen to be quite familiar with one of your colleagues at that time, and the rules have changed immensely since Carroll County adopted the sale of alcohol. Just like everything else, everything has to be modernized and brought up to date. Mm-hmm. Our last rule changes were made in March of 2015. Since that time, there have been many changes to the state statutes. Article 2B has been done away with, and a specific alcohol section to the annotated code of the state of Maryland has been added. What we are before you here today, first of all of our requested changes were presented and a public hearing was held in November with proper advertisement as required by law. At the time of that hearing, there were 3 people present in addition to staff and the Board of License Commissioners. They being 2 holders of license, 1 attorney, and the president or chairman, whatever his title is, of the Alcoholic Beverages group in Carroll County. Information was disseminated to them. Information was available. Each change was individually discussed at that public hearing. And with several pieces of input from those people that were there, these regulations and rules have come to be presented. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, whatever the case might be, I assume you all have the recommendations that we presented.
Yep.
They were in the county's hands before our meeting yesterday, in which a formal vote was held, and here again, public notice as required, and maybe not quite as required, but was our decision to post public notice again. Yesterday, there was no one in attendance when these rules were discussed again and adopted by the Board of License Commissioners for Carroll County. The first thing I think probably we need to present to you is a request from our state delegates whereby a Class D beer license, the board would have the option to allow off sales of alcoholic beverages, basically beer and wine, Class D license.
Okay.
It's the third.
Yeah, explain that a little bit, Dave, because I.
We only have, number one, we only have 5?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
5 Class D licenses in
Right.
Carroll County. Under state law, a Class D license, whether it be beer, beer and wine, or beer, wine, and liquor, they are allowed to sell for off-premises consumption. We have no beer, wine, and liquor Class Ds.
Correct.
Okay, so that's just beer and wine.
Just beer and wine.
Okay.
Now, there's a couple, I call them boutiques, schnorrs and baked goods and so on and so forth, that have a Class D license where they can serve a glass of beer or a glass of wine. And there's a couple with Class D that can serve beer.
I apologize. One more time. Class D is defined as, one more time.
Class D, as defined by the state of Maryland, okay,
Right.
will allow on-premises sale of beer, wine, or liquor. In Carroll County, a Class D license, you can obtain a Class D license for beer and wine on the premises and off-premises sales according to the state. We have no Class D license that you, in Carroll County, that will sell beer, wine, and liquor. Okay?
So would it help?
Our Class D license basically is an accommodation for something like a tea room.
There you go.
Or something where they're only open like from 10 to 2 with pastries, what's the name on the site, Bill?
Vine at the Main.
Well, Vine the Main's it's a store.
Yes. Class D license is not a restaurant. That's a Class B license. So Class D license does not have a food requirement. So we have Merit Athletic Club's a Class D.
Okay.
So there's no food requirement for them to sell like a restaurant has a food requirement.
Okay.
So they get this special license if they want to have an event.
Right, and they can.
I was going to prompt you to give us an example of an establishment. You did. So that's
Yeah.
the best way to
Okay.
be able to see in our minds what.
Mr. Rothstein, the blue building on the parking lot across from the post office in downtown Sykesville,
Uh-huh.
that has a Class D license.
Okay.
I don't know whether you've ever been in there or not, but I only mention that, of course.
Yep.
Right.
No, no, it's
That's
all
your-
good. And
that's
like
your
you
area.
said, Merritt Athletic Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Island Green,
Yeah.
the golf
Okay.
course up
Golf
140
Okay.
has a Class D.
They do?
Yes.
Yes. They just got it within the past 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah, I know they just, I mean, I know they had their license, but I didn't think it was a D.
It was a D because they don't sell food.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay.
Okay.
The commission does not believe that those type of organizations should be competing with liquor stores and wholesalers and so on and so forth. We don't believe that it's necessary, so we're asking to have Carroll County opt out for our commission to say yea or nay. There may be certain instances where it would be appropriate, but currently, nobody does it.
Right.
The Patapsco Distillery, what is that?
That's a state licensed establishment. Since Carroll County does not have a Class D beer, wine, and liquor, they're not eligible for a Carroll County license.
They're covered by a state license.
A state license, they are proposing a state license that's going to let them get a Class D license, which we would then, they come to us before the board and make a decision if they should get, the board makes a decision.
Okay.
So, if you get a Class D, does that take away the responsibility of having to come in here and get a one-day license for an event?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Also,
so if you have a Class D, it's good for like a year then, and
Yes.
you can have events, I guess, numbered, right?
Yes.
You can only have, I don't know how many with it.
And a Class D also is the first step for some restaurants. Market Tavern had a Class D license. They
Got it. Yeah.
tried it out, see it worked, and it moved
And
up
then
to
they
a
moved to
restaurant,
a-
and they moved up to Class
Okay.
D.
Got it.
Artisan Wine Company, before it was Wine Me Up,
Yep.
they were Class D that moved up to a Class B. So it's a
Okay.
first step for someone who's not sure if it's going to work.
Right.
I think it's a good idea, really, because it gives you that opportunity to see, okay, is it work or not work? You don't,
Right.
you know, so, okay, good.
And there's a huge difference in the fees.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So in this proposal, you're suggesting that Carroll County have a little bit more limited control
Yes,
over the,
yeah.
because the state law allows unfettered off-premises sales, and you're asking for more control.
Yep.
And you would allow or not allow a particular premise to have off-premises sales based on the totality of sort of what they present to you as a liquor board, right?
Yes, ma'am.
A little more checks and balances.
Right.
Yes.
Can't beat that. Okay.
What's,
Okay, the next piece of legislation, I'll put my glasses on, it takes so long.
Looks like we all need them.
The next piece of
That's the catering.
legislation is a catering license. Current regulations require if a caterer has the alcohol beverages to be served at an event, they must serve the food. And in today's many operations, some cases food is provided by a nonprofit or organization and so on and so forth, and they would like to have alcoholic beverages. What this simply does is allow somebody else to cater the alcoholic beverages as long as food is provided.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. That gets confusing too, so
Yeah.
that's a good idea as well, I think.
Yep.
So,
The more that.
And this
the
is
more
for
that-
Carroll County. Other counties are already doing this, I'm pretty
Yes.
sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, they are.
Yeah.
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 Kind of
There's
brings us
26 different rules for alcohol in the state of Maryland for each county.
keep in mind there are overarching state rules and then each
Right.
county.
Right.
Cook County can be more restrictive, can't be less restrictive,
Right.
right?
right.
Yep.
That makes sense.
And
Yeah.
the third proposed legislation, in our rules and regulations, this applies to Carroll County now. in our rules and regulations says that a new applicant must provide at least 10 signatures saying that they would support this operation. Well, in order to have an alcoholic license in Carroll County, that licensee must be a resident of Carroll County, which is kind of a farce. If I'm from one of the chains, all I do is come in and ask Joe Blow if they would be willing to be a licensee for an alcoholic beverage license in Carroll County. Now, they have to put up certain requirements, monetary or percentage of the operation of the business. Gentlemen, we as a license commission know that that's merely satisfying the requirements. 99 and 4,400% of the cases, that licensee is merely a figurehead. Now, in order to get 10 people to sign, you're going to have to knock on doors. Certainly, if you knock on enough doors, 10 people is going to sign, whether they're in favor of it or not. They want to get rid of you, probably. Some of you, you all went through election cycles.
Knocked on plenty of doors.
Knocking on doors. Now, there's safeguards to this. Another part of our rules and regulations, you must have signatures from taxpayers. And that's what, 15?
15 signatures, and then they qualify down to 10 requirement for the transfer, company transfer.
Yes. And they must be bona fide residents, real estate paying residents of Carroll County.
And registered voters.
And registered voters. So basically, all this does is take the regulation out of the, you got to knock on doors and get 10 people to say, we think we need your license. We think we need this restaurant. We think you're going to be okay. Now, those other signatures require that those people, that we ask those people if that applicant is a fit and proper person.
So you're not taking that away, Dave?
No.
You're keeping that in. You're
That's
just getting rid of
still in
that
there.
10 thing.
That's still in there.
Yeah, that's 10 people you know, so
Yeah.
they come in and say you're fit.
So
We're talking about transfer of location, so,
Right.
or a new license. They want to put a new place in Town. We had to put a sign out posting that new location. We also advertised twice in the Carroll County Times, telling about the notice at the hearing.
Right.
And we also put it on our website saying the hearing.
Yeah.
And the public has the opportunity to come into that hearing and express this as not a good idea for this location or a good idea.
Oh, and they did, so.
But good.
So disclaimer here, I've been through this process because.
I was going to mention that one of the commissioners went through the process without naming anybody.
Yeah. Well, I'll just put it out there because.
Commissioner Fraser is frowning at me, so I
So I went through the process before I got into this seat of being a liquor license holder. So I know the hoops that I had to jump through, and some of them made me go, what? So this is one of those that I went, what? So I think, I don't have a problem with this. I think it's a good idea.
It's just cleaning
I mean, as
up.
long as you're getting 15, and you vet a lot of those too, to say, you know, is Steve Wance a crook? That might not be the right question, but anyway.
I've heard that before. Didn't get your license, is what you're saying.
But
when we did that for you, we found out you dropped the baton one time in a parade.
Yeah, well, so there's that. So, did you hold that against me? I can't
No, not
remember.
really.
Okay,
Not just
good.
once.
Sure.
Question for you. You brought up the shop owner has to be a Carroll County resident.
The licensee has
The
to
licensee.
Yes, sir.
It's called a resident agent, we call it.
And you don't want that adjusted.
No.
However, you see the fact that people are working themselves around that by getting someone else to be that licensee inside the county, and like you said, just a name, but not holding the person
Basically,
accountable.
they have to have 1% interest or $5,000.
So that, I mean, this concerns me is, you know, again, it's transparency of ownership. And, you know, I am a small business owner. I have a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. So therefore, when I go after a contract, I have to be that 51% owner of that contract. And, you know, it's ethical and to do that. But if you're saying that people are working themselves around that, then I have a concern that, you know, we're not being very ethical.
Technically, they're not working around it. It's just
They're finding methods to
it's like anything else.
do the work. Well,
If you want to try hard enough, you could usually find a loophole of some type.
yeah, but instead of the loophole, why not work on adjusting the fact that they do not need to be a Carroll County resident to own a store or facility or something inside the county?
That's been addressed. And one of the changes that is in your packet here, where you have, and I'll use the Green Turtle, okay?
Yep.
They have 2 locations in Carroll County. They have 2 different licensees. One of the changes, and we have the ability to do that locally, one of the changes that we presented in here only applies to a restaurant, that they may hold up to 3 licenses in the same person's name. It's a corporation.
Sure.
You know, there are many of them. So that's one of the changes in the wording that we have put forth here. It does not require legislation to do it. The 3 proposals that we presented here
Required.
are the 3 that we're asking for.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Burke's office prepared
Right.
these.
If I may, those require state legislation, so if the board is so amenable, you'll just concur that you agree that these are, you know, good or bad for the county. Technically, even if you don't concur, the liquor board as an arm, as sort of a state arm, could go to the delegation and ask that they submit this legislation.
That might work in your favor if we don't concur to go to them.
It would be much better if the focus was full speed ahead by all of us.
Right.
Let's be clear. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
position, and
No. But you bring up a good point. But I
that's
think
the
it's-
reason we're here.
And
Right.
then if I may, one more second, the manual kind of thing, this one with the yellow highlights, the previous wording of it, those are the local operating procedures for our local liquor board, and those you do have to agree to if you want the changes.
Well, we can take these 3
They're separate.
things they're moving forward with and then
Separate.
look at the manual. Right. All right, do you have anything else on these 3 legislative?
No, not on these
Okay.
3, I'm just gonna add one other thing, okay? We have tried. As you know now, when a violation occurs, the license holder is the one that's held culpable. We have tried, and I'm told that we can't do it. At the present time, a sworn officer can issue a summons, but it's a criminal summons to the server, okay? And it's a criminal sentence, okay? In some counties, our inspectors, their inspectors are sworn officers, okay? They have the ability to do that. The position of this commission is, we think that a minimum fine should be assessed to the server, but we don't feel it should be a criminal citation. And what we thought we could do was get legislation introduced that would give the liquor board the power to fine up to $25 or $50 for the server as a civil violation. But I'm told by legal that it can't be done. So I only give that to you as a point of information because I've spoken to a couple of you over the years about this very same thing.
Why can't it be done? Anybody know? Tim? I mean, that's getting,
I assume the county attorney that handles, that represents the liquor board has done the research and found that that's not, I'm guessing, and we can find out more, that it's probably not within it's not one of the delegated authorities to the local liquor board through state law, is what I'm guessing. But that's a guess on
Yeah,
that.
let's find out. Yeah, I mean.
I don't want to take up all your time
No.
for that, but what,
Too late.
Ms. Roberta just mentioned.
but it
is-
makes sense.
what-
The owner may not realize what's going on.
Right.
The person he's hiring
Correct.
has some accountability at that point. And it's a slap on the wrist, but it's
Well, it's
to
not
them
on the
that.
list, But let me give you our latest statistics. In 2014, I don't think you all were aware when we were able to get a part-time inspector as well as a full-time. We've got about 156 licensees, and to go out and try to enforce the rules. Our rate was 84%.
Yes.
Was 84% compliance for underage drinking, okay, in 2014. 2018, it was 96%. So kudos to Inspector Benfer and Inspector Reed and the NTAR department for the job that they're doing. It's, ever since I've been on the license board, it's been our policy, we don't want to see you in here. We love to see you as citizens and friends, but we don't want to see you in here for a violation. And as you can see, from 80 in 4 years, 84% to 96.
That's fantastic.
The last two meetings, we haven't even had a violation, and our people are still working. But that said, as Mr. Roberta said, these are rules and changes and so on and so forth to our existing manual. Many of them, as you look through there, many of those things just apply because the state changed an article
Right.
number.
Well, let's go over the pieces of legislation first and see if we want to move them forward.
I'll move we take the 3 legislative concepts forward to the state delegation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That was 5-0. Thank you. Okay, now we move on to the.
Thank you very much. Now, how do you want to proceed with this?
Well, the briefing paper has sort of a summary of the changes. I think maybe if there, you already alluded to one of
Yes.
the major changes, which is the state law article change from 2B to
Alcohol beverage article.
article, thank you. I was looking for it. There you go. So that's one of the major changes. If there are others that maybe can be grouped and discussed as a group, that might be the easiest way to do it. If not,
I
then
think
go
this,
through them.
So, in other words, you're I don't know that we have to go down. I've had this for a week now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've
So
Isn't
I-
66 growlers, or is it Crowler?
Now, growler is a bottle, refillable bottle that they go to different bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
And then that came up with a crowler, which now is a refillable can
Okay.
that they go up to different bars and restaurants. We had the growler rules, now they came up with this
Now the crowler
crowler
rules.
C. So
God.
now we have
Wow.
to have the crowler rules added.
So this is a Crowler.
It's a crowler and growler, yeah, but that's talking about crowler, yes. This is our current book, if anybody wants a copy of our current.
Pay attention, Commissioner Weaver.
Well, I just
You're a
got
growler or
an education
growler,
on
okay?
that. I-
You're either growling or you're crowling, okay?
Are these,
Sounds like something from Dr. Seuss.
That's true.
Are these crowlers, are these 1 gallon cans?
No, they're 32
No,
ounce
32.
cans,
32
a
ounce.
tall boy.
Okay.
Mount Airy Inn's the only place I know in Carroll County that has a crowler.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Really?
Yes. Could you get the buy machine that fills it, cleans it, fills it, spins the top on, and seals it? A crowler can stay sealed for longer than a growler. A growler is like a big wine bottle or a jug
Yeah, okay.
that has a cork on it that can't stay.
Didn't realize the technicality of that.
I'm learning a
That's
lot
actually
here.
good. That's actually good. I mean,
Well, if you do either one of them, you better be a good beer drinker.
Beyond me, I can tell you that.
Well, I have a question about one of the, it's actually not a change, I guess, but it's on the, when a prospective customer's age is in question. It says you require 2 pieces of identification?
When it's in question, yes.
Yeah, but I don't know, it seems funny to me, because don't most people just show a driver's license?
Yes, but you also usually carry a credit card or something else with your name on it.
Here's the kicker.
Okay, but is that actually done?
Fake ID.
I mean, I've never been, no one's,
The young crowd, fake IDs.
I look
Fake
very young,
ID.
but they don't actually
Fake
ask me.
IDs.
If you have
Yeah, okay.
Fake ID.
Or if you have an older brother that's 22 and he loses his license,
Right.
and he gets a new license, he has your license, but you won't give him your credit card.
Okay.
So it's another way.
Right, I understand the
But
reason
the
behind
main-
it, but
the main
people are,
point on-
but they do that, because, I mean, I've never been asked for my ID, I just didn't know that. It was just a question.
I did it 3 times at the establishment that I was involved with because it was in question.
All right.
And it worked all 3 times. As a matter of fact, the young lad and the young lady left as a result of that. And it just protects the staff and the
Right.
owner.
I think it's a good idea, I just
yeah.
didn't know it was done. Now, when I read it,
We
I
did
said,
it 3
"Really?"
times.
But
it sounds good.
The main part of that was we've added passports.
Right, I see that.
A
Yeah, I
valid
see the
passport.
change.
As a valid, as a
military
valid
ID.
ID. A Maryland license, your identification card, military ID, or a
Right.
valid passport. We have some people that come in Westminster that only have passports or green cards. So now they can take those as a valid license.
Okay.
It's just another level of checks and balances again, I mean, which is really important.
Yeah.
So,
I just didn't know it was being done like that, and it's
Yeah.
just, okay. So it's
I don't
good-
think it
good
happens
reasoning.
too often, but
No, I wouldn't think
when
so.
it, there are times that it comes into question.
Sure.
And I think isn't the Maryland State driver's license changing
Yes.
as we speak?
It's in the process of changing now.
Right.
You cannot get a new Maryland license at, like Westminster MVA. You actually have to go in and do the information, and they mail it to you because it gets printed down in Glen Burnie. It's very sophisticated, high resolution ID.
One of the things that we certainly appreciate your support on this past 2 years, we've had an educational seminar, for one of the different words, at the community college. Things such as selling to minor, fake IDs, state rules and regulations, and many other topics that Inspector Benfer has arranged for the seminars. And many of these things, it's eye-shattering. If you look at an ID, we went through the process of how do you know that that's a valid driver's license? Nose, eyes, ears, many things that I never would have thought of. That if you look, and examples were given to everybody there, and it was well over 25, 30 people at each one of them. And he would put up on the screen where you all could see, and he would say, well, look at the bridge of the nose. It's not the same as on that ID. And
Y'all do a
just
good
many
job of that.
things. So anyway.
And I know the fire companies, a lot of them are getting the tips training now too.
Yes.
Because that's important too, because you go to these functions at fire companies, and you got volunteers working tap rooms. Sky's the limit. And now these folks have been trained to identify and ask for ID at the bull roasts and all of the functions that go on at these facilities too. So, I mean, that goes to some of that 96% too. I mean, you guys you're doing a tremendous amount of work.
That training seminar is phenomenal, and
Yeah.
I saw
You
the
went to it,
people.
didn't you, Dick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw people attending it. It is amazing, the feedback I got from it, that they just like the idea, and I think that's part of your success rate, is you are offering training to them, to the licensees and their employees. And, tremendous.
We just want you all, as a licensing commission, to know that along with our staff and so forth, we're trying to be proactive and not reactive. And that's the reason for many of these changes.
Yeah.
Some of the changes internally that have been made. But if you have this this pretty much covers everything
Yeah.
that's there, so.
Yeah, we've had this for
If
a
anybody
week
has
or
any
more.
questions on it?
Yeah, I've had it for a week and I
Yeah.
didn't see anything.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really wanted you to do was be able to have nonprofits be able to raffle off the cheer baskets, because a lot of them are doing that illegally.
We've,
So I appreciate you guys addressing that, because again, our
It's-
nonprofits, our fire companies, and our service organizations, that's, I run a golf tournament, and, you know, you put a basket of cheer on there, guess what, or books, or shirts, or shoes, or whatever, guess what they're gonna go after first?
right,
The alcohol.
The shoes.
Okay, wrong guess.
Depends who it is.
You said guess.
That's why it's a guess.
This has been a bone of contention in the past with some members of our organization, and I share your thoughts.
Yeah.
100%. It's just,
Yeah.
All right, can we get a motion to approve the changes?
Well, did everybody have a chance to look? I wanna
Everybody
make
look
sure.
good? I mean, we've had them for
Looked
a while, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah?
I'm good.
Okay, I'm sorry, Dennis, I
Go
just wanted
ahead.
to make sure.
Yeah, okay.
No, so I'll motion to move the board, county commissioner approve the changes to the board license commissioners rules, regulations manual.
I'll second it.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
thank you very much, gentlemen. Just
Thank-
one thing, we will reprint this, but we're gonna wait until the legislation is approved, because it affects this. There's no use to print it up and 6
Right.
months have to do it over again. Thank
Okay.
you all
And
very
Good
much.
thank you for the
Thank
work
you.
you're doing.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really appreciate
Good
it.
job,
Thank you.
Dave. And Keith, nice
Good
job.
luck to all of you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, we have public comment. Public comment before the, okay.
About this again?
No, this is general public comment.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, because I was gonna say, point of order,
We're at the end
we've
of
already
this.
heard,
We're at
okay,
the end of our
All right.
okay.
Start that clock.
Thank you for allowing me another 3 minutes to talk. It's very generous of you, and I appreciate it. And I wanted to talk about the issue of open government. You know, a couple weeks ago, we had a decision by the previous board, I guess just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, where the notice of public hearings in the newspaper, the board voted, I think they voted unanimously, 5-0, to reduce the number of notices of public hearings in the newspaper for Board of Zoning Appeals hearings, public hearings. And I was very disturbed by that. I don't know, shocked. I'd like to say I was shocked, but with the history of our elected officials, I have to say that maybe after 12 years, I've kind of reached the place of, I don't know, I'm not shocked at any people. I don't know if we have another person getting up to speak, but we need to do everything we can to bring in the public, to get them engaged, and reducing the notice of public hearings in the newspaper, Board of Zoning Appeals hearings, from 2 to 1. I think we're going in the wrong direction. I guess, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk on the issue that they just discussed, so maybe not, I don't know. But again, we need to be bringing the public in, not cutting them out. That's my big concern with what I talked about a little bit. And I think that's what's happening. We're cutting out public input, public contact, public notice. I am very concerned about that. You know, we have websites. We have government websites, we have department websites, but how often do we go to those websites? And we had a previous commissioner talked about that. It's like push versus pull advertising. Pull, I guess, means that we as a public have to take the initiative to go to a website and look at it to see what's going on. Pull is you put information out to the public. You put it in the newspaper where maybe they're looking for, they want to buy another used car or something, and they're looking for other things, and lo and behold, oh my goodness, this affects my neighborhood, and they're able to see that. And so I guess that's called push advertising. And I think I would like to see that this board, this new board, really move in the direction of being proactive. I don't think just saying we've got it on our website. I don't think that's adequate. and I want to see more done. I
Thank
want to
you.
encourage you. Thank you, Mr. Frazier.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to minutes. We have a minutes of Tuesday, December 4th at 3 p.m.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve, I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
That was an easy one.
It was.
That was easy.
Wish they all
Minutes
could be that way.
of Thursday, December 6th at 10 a.m. A motion to approve.
Second. Oh,
Anybody
So
ready?
moved, okay.
so moved.
You're ahead of yourself.
All right.
I want to get it done.
All in favor?
Aye.
And minutes of December 6th, 1 p.m. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We gonna do agendas before we do,
Forget the vote.
I guess we are, okay. The president said, yeah, I'm just kidding. All right.
I warned.
Tuesday, December 18th, 9 a.m. Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at County Office Building, Commissioner Wance and Rothstein. 2 o'clock, Veterans Advisory Meeting at VFW Post 467, Commissioner Weaver. At 3 o'clock, we have the Joint Commissioners Delegation Meeting in the Reagan Room with Commissioner Frazier, Wance, Weaver, Boucher, and Rothstein. Wednesday, December 19th at 12, it's a Mount Airy Senior Center holiday meal, and Commissioner Boucher. On Thursday, December 20th, we have request approval to submit application for CalArt Foundation Grant for Veteran Services Program. We have a medical respiratory space presentation. We're having a request approval for Department of Public Safety Director to award contract and pay resulting invoices. We have exercise an option to purchase Reinhardt Reinhardt property through the Critical Farms Program. We have Sykesville Town Meeting in Sykesville, Maryland, Commissioner Rothstein. And the Commissioner's report that week is Commissioner Rothstein.
You're gonna be a busy guy.
On the week of, the following week, the Christmas week, Monday, December 24th and Tuesday, December 25th, county offices are closed in observance of Christmas. We have nothing else on the calendar except the Commissioner's report that week will be Commissioner Wance.
The only thing happening that week. What's up with that?
Expect something very festive from your report.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
So
Now we're
keep
gonna-
it festive.
We're gonna-
I'll try. Maybe I could get you all to come in and we could record together and perhaps, I don't know, sing Christmas.
You don't eat the whole 10 minutes up yourself.
So, I just thought, each of you, we're gonna talk about the potential proposed
Yeah.
legislation. Most of it is specific to a commissioner, so whichever commissioner wants to discuss that with his colleagues, just
Let's
take it
ju-
up.
let's go handle
The
that
first one's the
exact same
bond
way.
bill. This is just something we do every year.
Right.
It gives us the authority to issue bonds, and if we choose to in that given year. So, since we didn't last year, I have to put that date in.
All right.
So that's an regular annual event. Yeah.
All right, and as we go down, the first page tells you what they are. If it's a bill you're proposing, speak up and tell us what it's about. My first thing here is the detention of overdosed individuals. This was not moved forward by delegation in 2018. The proposal on this legislation said if you're overdosed and you're revived, that you will be required to be held for up to 12 hours, up to being the key word there. In that 12 hours, you'll be evaluated. You'll be given information about what you can do, and hopefully maybe even get into a rehab program, put into a crisis bed at that point. My justification for this is, number one, up to 12 hours after you ingest opioids, even if they bring you back around, you can still die from that, even if you don't take anything else. So being held at the hospital or somewhere for 12 hours would be a smart thing to do. The second thing is people that do activities, in other words, if you try to commit suicide or something like that sort, try to injure yourself, you can be held up to 72 hours, so you can be evaluated. If you're looking at what's happening today with opioids and other drugs and all this stuff, carfentanil and everything else is put into drugs, if you're not looking at it as a self-destructive activity where you may, it's kind of like playing Russian roulette, if you ask me. You're pulling the trigger, is it loaded or not? So that's my justification for trying to move this forward. I know there will be some outcry from people, you can't hold somebody for 12 hours. But I really think, as you look at our numbers are going up for overdose across not just Carroll County or Maryland, but across the country, we have to do something different. I think this is the first step in doing something different. So I don't know if you guys want to try to push this through again, but I do think it's well worth doing. And I'm not objecting if there's a similar bill being proposed by someone else, we can join the bills together and try to get more traction out of it that way. That's all good stuff. But I think it's just my idea to push this forward. So any comments?
Was there a bill last year, Mike? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Why don't you
Come up to the
come up
table.
and sit down.
Morning.
Morning.
Is this on?
Yeah,
It's
you're
not,
red.
so
You're
we're
red.
good.
Or now you're off. Well, I don't know.
Go ahead.
We can hear you.
As long as we can hear you.
There, you're good.
There were a number of bills last year, and I'll just interject quickly some recent changes. You might have seen former Anne Arundel County Executive Shu has been named by the
Yes.
governor
Yep.
to head up that area. And also, it's one of MACO's 4 legislative initiatives.
Yep.
So I think you may have a little bit more inertia behind some of these, and your suggestion about looking for allies in this,
Right.
I think is the way to
Right.
go.
If there's other bills out there that are very similar to this, let's join with those other bills. Let's join together to try to get something passed. Doesn't have to be this 12-hour, it's excellent, but it doesn't have to be this 12-hour bill. It could be a different bill, similar. Because I would like to get something moved forward this way. And I don't know if that was looked at last year or not, but let's look at other legislation that's similar and see if we can push it forward. That's if we agree as a board. Of course, I want to push this forward anyway, but if we agree as a board to move this.
No, I think it's a good idea. I supported it last year,
Right.
Dennis, because I thought it was a good idea. I think where some of the issues came up, I think the law enforcement community weighed in on this a little bit with the technicalities of being able to hold somebody and the ability to be able to hold somebody. That's where I think it got a little bit of challenge to
Right.
it.
If this passes, kind of like when the Greywater bill passed last time. It was passed, and actually they haven't even wrote the regulations for it yet.
Right.
If this passes, they'll have to write the regulations about how to handle this
Right.
and what would happen. I don't know. Law enforcement would take them to a hospital or a crisis bed center, and they'd be held that, something of that sort. But it has to be worked. Those things have to be ironed out.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Right. No, I think that's where it got lost in the weeds a little bit because of the fact that the law enforcement community said, okay, that's fine, but you want to hold them in my back seat, or what do you want me to do?
Right, and that does have to be worked out, but
Right.
they have to, my hope would be we have additional crisis beds around the county that we can hold them in.
No, so I appreciate that, and your focus now more on the intent than the actual task. 12 hours is an arbitrary number, you know.
It is, but it's not.
I understand,
The reason I hit
but-
the 12 hours is because you can die from the opioids in your system
No,
after 12 hours.
and I
Go ahead.
appreciate that, and it's the same thing about holding somebody, like you said, the logistics of where and how, and who's responsible. Taking away those civil liberties of that individual has to be understood. So, if we continue to focus on the intent of the ability to, I can't even say ensure, but better ensure, minimize the risk of fatality.
Right.
That's what needs to be said, not necessarily the number and the constraint, but the ability that we want to move forward with the intent to minimize the risk, minimize the engagement of the individual, for that period of time. Because it could be 12 hours, it could be 14, it could be 6. I'm not going to say this is the time. But I do appreciate the aggressiveness in going forward with this.
So with your passion, Eric, on this didn't come out of our delegation last year, correct?
Correct. Right.
They
So it
decided
didn't
not to
even go
take
into
it
the
up.
committee.
Right, they didn't take up any.
The reason I'm
Right.
pointing at you, shouldn't point, he already yelled at me about
That's
that.
all right.
But I think in order to get the emphasis of the importance of this, if you agree with this,
I'd like to
you would
add
like
an
to tag team on this and
Right.
really push the delegation to move this. You got the ball in your
Well, through
court.
my experience through the loss of my daughter, one of the biggest frustrations I had was her overdosing multiple times in 24 hours while she was under court supervision and probation. somewhere in the language of a potential bill, at the very least, anyone who's under court supervision, we should have some sort of authority to maintain them and put them back into lockup or put them in treatment, because they're already under the supervision of the courts. So if at all, at the very least, the language should be written that if they pull your record and see a judge has you under supervision and probation, that would be a trigger to trip the detention of that individual, and then have them maybe within 72 hours be up in front of a judge, or whatever the language would be. I'm not an expert at it, but the fact that someone would be retained in to prevent them from ODing again in 24 hours is a good thing, but they also have civil liberties, and that they'd have to be guaranteed within so many hours to be put in front of a judge, a magistrate, and have it reviewed for them to determine whether they're in violation and should be detained further, or a potential violation of their probation. So at the very least, I'd like to see something in the language of any proposed bill like this have to do with if those individuals are under court supervision already. I don't know about the other individuals, but at the very least, if they're under court supervision, there has to be some authority in the courts and judicial officers to detain that person.
Well, I like the idea that if they're under probation or court supervision, that they should look at that and maybe, but I don't like the idea of then having to go before a judge afterwards. That I don't want to.
I think that comes down to their civil liberties.
Well, we're only detaining them for 12 hours, in my opinion, for their own good, for their own well-being. I just.
Yeah, so again, I think the language in this should focus on the intent. Hold, Dennis, just
go ahead. Well, who's asked me a question, but if I can first. The
Go
reason
ahead.
I want to go in front of judges is because everyone out there says, well, this is a disease. It's not a criminal activity. It's a disease. Okay, if it's a disease, let's treat it like it's a disease. How many people that have a recurring cancer go before a judge or go to jail? I don't think it's. I just don't like to. I don't want it that way. It's a disease. Let's put in things that we can do to try to limit what they're doing this way, but put it back in front of the law enforcement. If we're going to treat it like a disease, and treat it like a disease. If we're not going to, then we're not going to. It's you can't do both things. That's my objection to that.
So.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Commissioner Frazier, I apologize. Not letting you get the full thought out, and I appreciate what you're saying. I think, again, the focus of this specific recommendation, and I appreciate that because it's an aggressive recommendation, is that, again, we focus on the intent of what you're trying to accomplish, and that is to minimize a risk to an individual and the endangerment of the individual, right. And I think that's what we need to recommend going forward, and then let it be defined further by the hours and all that kind of stuff. But
right.
Let's focus on why we're doing what we're doing.
That should be put in the rationale of why we're putting this forward.
Right.
That's good. Yeah.
So, that's all.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Do we want to vote it? I'll make a motion that we, as a board, vote to move this forward to the state delegation.
I second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 It's 5-0. Thank you. Okay, next thing we have up here is, one of my things. Mandatory counseling for patients prescribed maintenance drugs. And take out the word opioid there and put for drug dependence, because it's not just opioids anymore, drug dependence. What this bill says is that if you're being prescribed by a doctor some maintenance drug to keep you off of heroin or whatever it happens to be, or it could be Adderall, it could be almost anything. You're being prescribed a maintenance drug to keep you off that. In order to get your prescription refilled every 2 weeks or a month, depends on how the doctor lays that out, and that's up to them, that you have to go to see a certified, what is it called, drug or
Licensed substance abuse.
There you go. And have in front licensed substance abuse counselor before you get your next prescription. And that can be handled as easily as when we have kids in school, they're out for a dental appointment, they come back to school, they have the slip from the dentist saying I was at the dentist, and their absence is excused. But before you can get any of these maintenance drugs for whatever, you can't go to any doctor and get the maintenance drugs prescribed to you unless you have the the notification or verification from some counselor saying that you went and saw them, and you have to see them, whatever the schedule is set up between you, the counselor, and your doctor. But also that means that you can't go to a different doctor and say, oh, you know, my doctor is out of town, I need to get this right now. No, you can't do it unless you have that from the counselor. We added that, right, Tim? Yes.
You know, the concern with that is, again, I appreciate the reasoning why, but the concern is you're adding steps to an individual to get additional counseling, therefore insurance requirements, whether those counselors then have to be covered under the insurance, because if they're not covered under insurance, you know, then, no, let me just finish. And so, you know, I don't want to take away the responsibility and the ethical responsibility of the doctors and minimize their ethical responsibilities. So if they, you know, they should be the ones that are prescribing the drugs, doing it appropriately, and I mean, there's rules for them to do it.
There are rules that actually, from what I've seen, they don't follow them.
Well,
the doctor, you're supposed to get counseling, some type of counseling before you get your maintenance drug. You're supposed to do that. You know how they verify that? You come in and you say, it's time for me to get my whatever it is, my maintenance drug. Doctor or the nurse or whoever's there said, did you go to counseling? Yes, I did. Bang. Okay, here it is. There's no verification at all. You're supposed to get the counseling. All this says is that you're already supposed to get the counseling, so we're not adding that extra step. All we're adding is a step that the counselor that you went and saw already because you're supposed to gives you some type of verification that you then take to the doctor. That's all this does.
Let's shine
It doesn't require any
yeah.
additional counseling. It's already required.
I think we should shine a light on the responsibility of the doctors. And if the laws are in place that they're supposed to do X, then we should be shining the light of responsibility on them. And, you know, not minimizing it, because that's, to me.
I'm not trying to minimize, I'm trying to make them accountable. So you're suggesting that when I go, if I'm one who needs a maintenance drug and I go see a doctor, the doctor calls the counselor?
Right. Say it one more.
So you're doing an
I
extra-
apologize. Say it one more time.
So instead of me bringing a piece of paper or whatever it is, some type of verification from the counselor, I get in there and they say, did you go see a counselor? Yes, I did. Okay, wait here because now we have to call the counselor. Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm saying it's the doctor's responsibility to
How
ensure
else is he going
have
to
the
fulfill that responsibility?
That's their job.
How else is he going to do it? Is my question.
I need to have the confidence in a physician that they are doing what they're responsible to be doing. If they are not, and there's a question about that, then again, shine the light and enforce the laws to ensure that the doctors are doing the appropriate procedures. I mean, that to me is
The question
all
is,
I'm
how do
saying.
you do that?
It's the law.
It is the law, and it's not being followed.
Right. That's
And
where
it's as simple as that. It's not being followed.
So you're suggesting if you make it legislative that it. That
Well, and you put the onus on the patient, and all you do, you're supposed to be going to get the counseling anyway. You're supposed to. That's already in the law.
Right.
So all you're doing now is getting verification from your counselor or whoever you're seeing.
Right.
I went there, here's the verification. That's all I'm asking for is that one, you're taking all you're adding is one piece of paper that the patient takes from the counselor to the doctor.
No, and I appreciate the intent and the reason and rationale why. I just think that if we add continuing layers on top of these type of responsibilities and jurisdictions, then, you know, I'm just concerned that we're going to continue to build on laws but not enforce the basic laws that we have in place. And there are basic laws, and my biggest concern is when, and I don't disagree with you, when you say a physician is not following something, then let's focus our attention on ensuring that the physician is owning up to their responsibilities in accordance with the laws.
Well, then, I would be glad to withdraw this if can come up with a different bill about how you can ensure the physicians do their part. I think this is the simplest answer to that.
This doesn't have to be done today, does it? We do have a week, I believe, to.
We meet with the delegation Tuesday.
Okay, so
On
we have Monday.
On Monday, we have the Senior Opioid Policy Advisory meeting on Monday. I'd like to float this.
Well, I'm going to bring all this up to them.
Good.
Okay.
Because they're the experts on this.
And right, and they might want to change something or this, but Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Let's table it, have that discussion on Monday.
All right, if we, okay.
Just for the record,
Okay.
all these were already through that route last
Yeah.
time.
Okay, okay, thanks.
So maybe someone will have new ideas, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's primarily the reason why these didn't move out of our delegation, was because of some of these thoughts that came out of that group before. But
That's a good
again,
point.
I'm not poo-pooing the idea that we ought to
Right.
push it again.
Right.
Because with a tweak, I think it's a good idea. So that's a good suggestion, I think.
Yeah.
Let that group hear it again, and then roll.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So we
Thank
just
you.
want to hold this one.
Yeah, hold that one until you
Okay.
run it through the senior policy
Yeah.
group.
All right. What's the next one? Okay. Is this mine too?
Yeah.
Post-detoxification counseling. What this says, only thing this says, and it, for some reason it didn't go through either. Let's say you're in rehab. Tuesday, you're scheduled to get out of rehab. Wednesday, your counseling starts. The next day, the day after you get out of rehab, the next day, whatever, if it's counseling, if it's IOP, if it's whatever it is, it starts the next day. I'm saying it's not mandatory, because it's no different than it is right now, because right now, if you get out of Shoemaker or somewhere, and you get out on Tuesday, what happens now is that there's a time lapse between the time you get out of there and the time your next counseling or IOP, whatever it is, starts. Sometimes that's up to 10 days. You're going right back to the same place where you were using the drugs before, your neighborhood and all. You were using them there before. You're going right back there with no support. What do you think happens? Of course there's a relapse. So all this bill says is that instead of waiting 7 to 10 days to start the next step, it starts the next day. So you have support right from there. I know many people, I've talked to many people, that when they get out of rehab, they're all fired up, they all want to keep it going, they all want to do this. But in that lapse time, their fired upness, or whatever you want to call it, their enthusiasm drops down a little bit, and their old friends are trying to pull them back in. That happens. So let's give them the support right from day one when they get out. That's all this bill says. You don't need any additional counseling, you don't need any additional counselors, you don't need anything else. All you need is everything to be worked out timing-wise. That's all it is.
I agree those gaps need to be filled, but by who? Who's responsible for filling this gap?
Well, when you get out now, what happens is the person that's working with you in rehab takes and does all this. They set all this up for you. All they have to do is set it up earlier. They don't wait until the day or 2 days before to get out, a week before they know you're about to get out, then they set it up. So everything is ready to go when you get out. All it takes is the people that are working in the rehab and the IOP or whatever the next step happens to be to communicate sooner. Because if you have enough counselors or whatever for this person to engage them 10 days later, you still have the same amount. Only thing you're looking at is now they're engaging them sooner.
So
It doesn't
you're asking
require
for
any additional.
seamless transition.
That's all, yeah.
All right.
May I suggest that we take the same route with this one? Because there were some concerns from that group about this one as well.
Right, okay.
And also clear.
Monday.
It's
And
Monday.
let's be clear about the procedures here
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
because
'Cause
we
you
don't
guys
have
have-
to do these as a group. Anybody can
Yeah.
suggest legislation to our
Right.
to our delegation. So
And we'll get a
we
similar
won't have the
response.
opportunity to say aye on these two,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think it's important to get the take from that group, because there's some treatment people that sit in there that might have a different take, which is why this turned left last year.
And
So-
some update from
Well-
NACO too, because there might be similar initiatives from the governor.
Well, there could be. I mean,
If I-
now that Shu's there's going to be some different thought patterns as well too. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but
if
but it.
Go ahead.
I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to knock
All right,
this
I-
one down either. But I
I'm
think
not
that
saying that, but.
I
I'm
think
sorry,
you ought
go
to
ahead.
let I think you ought to let this group hear this as well on Monday.
And I
And
do.
then
Okay,
you can
then-
bring it up based on the comments as an
Alright.
individual, Dennis.
All right, I'm just, when I presented these almost exact same piece of legislation in a group last year, I don't, except for the 12-hour detention one, I don't remember a lot of negative from them. I thought they were all 100% or
Right.
more or less 100% behind them, and they want to push these things forward. So it wasn't the senior policy group
No.
that said no to most of these.
Right.
It was our own delegation that decided not to take them up, and
Right.
that's up to them to do that. But it wasn't the next group that you're
Right.
talking about. And I am planning to meet with them, and Commissioner
Good.
Boucher is going to be there as well.
Good. So two
on
things,
Monday.
you know, you might get some new ideas that might push this
Right.
a little bit better. And the other thing is, all this information is fantastic, as Mike pointed out. MACO's, this is one of their top 4 this year. So all of these things, even if our state delegation don't push through, we can certainly get it through
Right.
the MACO or add it to the MACO initiative, too.
And we'd have a better chance of success.
And I'd be
Exactly.
glad to come and talk to whatever MACO group there is
Right.
and
Yeah.
put this out there
Okay.
with my suggestions
So
and so
if,
forth.
I would suggest that you let this one roll
All
as
right.
well.
And I just want to share, because I appreciate 100% the intent in this, because you're right. Gap between getting out of a facility, getting out of the doctor's office, to going back into a counselor, especially on a long weekend, these guys are getting hammered. So minimizing that gap, minimizing any chances of relapse. So I really appreciate this.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah, it's-
I think it's a good idea to talk Monday, but.
This is a good one.
We can do, absolutely.
It is good.
I agree.
Yeah.
I won't even bring up the next one because I'll talk to the group on Monday.
Yeah, I would do that one too, because
That's
there
fine.
were
Yeah,
some
I do
really interesting thoughts that came out of this one.
Well, and that-
You know, legislating
yes.
a 6-day supply was.
That's huge.
That was.
It's
you know,
necessary, but
I thought,
I
I
know.
thought,
Okay,
I
okay.
thought laws were changed on that, on prescription,
Not
6 day. No.
like this. No.
Okay.
This,
Not
this
the
really,
6 day.
this really
Huh.
narrowed it down.
No, I understand, but I thought recently laws were either being looked at.
The only
changed.
thing that I can
If not,
recall that
that's-
laws were being looked at is
Yeah.
that instead of you getting a month supply or
Yeah.
90-day supply, you get a 2-week supply.
Okay.
Or
Yeah,
something
I
of
think
that
that's
sort.
what it
And
was,
that's what's
yeah.
changed, and
Okay.
that was to keep
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
not you, but other, people from selling extra
Right.
pills. That's what that law was put for. It had nothing to do with you becoming addicted.
Right.
So you don't
Right.
sell them on the open market.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I'll talk to
good.
Monday, okay?
Yep.
Next one.
That's mine, I believe.
Yeah, private access on public land,
Just,
private lands.
this is the one protecting private lands, and this has twofold. Came from, I guess, the Monocacy River Plan, first of all, and some areas. This proposal provides no, this is to protect property owners from undesired public access to private property, that you can't be mandated to use private property for public access. I think it's originated with Monocacy River, and that some of that has been taken out. But the other part of it is, we have some of the counties with farmland preservation have realized that people think that since they've sold the lot rights, that they have public use of those lands, and that's the other part that this helps reinforce. Some of the counties said, well, we use some public money to buy property rights.
You mean like ag pres and stuff like that?
Ag pres, that
Okay.
they should be able to
Right, I
go
got you.
cross-country skiing, snowmobiling, anything they want on that private property, so I think it needs
ATVs
to
is an
be.
issue.
It needs to be addressed. Howard County had this issue a couple year or so ago, that people did not understand what land preservation is and how it works, and this is just to reinforce those type things, or that you can't take private property and say, well, we're gonna put a bike trail through here. No.
It's just a great idea.
Without
That's good.
compensation. Oh, it's a great idea, but without compensation, you have to
Right,
have.
right.
Yeah.
That was a
So
joke. for
that's
anybody
why it
listening.
was,
It was a joke.
I hate,
Originally put
I
it.
hate the fact that we would have to legislate this.
Exactly.
I mean, this is like, geez, I don't wanna sound like somebody. But to have to explain to people what ag preservation means through
Yes, you do.
legislation
Right.
seems absurd to me, Dick. I'm not talking negatively about your idea. It just, and I think that may be why it didn't come out of our delegation, because.
Well, I think specific to the proposal, the concern was it's so broad,
It is very broad.
you
Yeah,
know,
you
and,
gotta-
and so you've already got trespassing laws. This, if you look at this, for example, could a meter reader go onto someone's property? If you pass this as is, I would say no, this would preclude someone from going on to your property for any reason. And that was really, I think, the reason why it didn't go forward. So if there's a way that this can be tightened up to some extent, you know, or directed to a certain conditions, it may have more success. But I think as it's written, it's just too broad for them to move it forward, because it would be statewide, obviously.
And can you imagine what would happen if you introduce something broad like this?
Well,
because hang on,
maybe this isn't
there-
year to
there's gonna
introduce
be,
it. Maybe we need to tweak it and take it back.
legislators attaching all kinds of crazy crap to it.
Yes, maybe take it back and narrow it through the
It's
Farm
truth,
Bureau and some
yeah.
others, and come back another year with a bill. Maybe not the year to introduce this one. Could happen.
If I may suggest, I think maybe try to tweak, work with what's your name again? Work with Bert and try to tweak and put some detail into this before we push it again.
Well, I think working with the Ag Press Board and the Farm Bureau are the
Right.
two
I think it's going to take time to
Right.
present
Yeah.
this one. This is a carryover from last year. And
If you're good with that,
I don't have any problem with that.
Okay.
Back to Commissioner Frazier.
I don't want to put this out there, but I will.
Again?
I took the styrofoam off this time. Keep this in mind.
You're killing me, really?
This next proposal is to prohibit the use of and/or distribution of plastic bags for retail establishments, restaurants, or grocery stores. This is one-time or one-use plastic bags. There are plenty of other things out there besides the plastic bags. I just think it's time to do what I thought was time last year, and no one else thought that way, by the way. That's fine. But I just have to bring it up again. There's too much plastic. You go on anywhere in Carroll County after a windstorm and look at all the plastic bags and the trees or on the fences and everything else. There are other things out there, just other ways to handle the problem.
For purpose of clarification, this would enable Carroll County to take action as other municipalities and counties have to prohibit plastic bags. So it's enabling legislation. Right now, you have no authority to do this.
And you believe that it's the county government's responsibility to enforce the use of plastic bags, to enforce the, people using them or prohibit them?
I think it's the county government's responsibility to look out for the welfare of their citizens, and this is
I
part
agree.
of that.
I do, and I 100% agree that it is our responsibility as leaders and also good stewards within government to do that, but to focus our attention on restricting the use of plastic bags.
Let's put straws in there too, but I want.
Well, okay, and straws, well, regardless.
Go
But
ahead.
I think
Sorry.
messaging and now I don't want to say incentivizing, but somehow, but messaging to the community the reasons why we should be minimizing the use of straws and plastic bags and other things, styrofoam, whatever it may be, is a good idea. And as leaders, we lead by example. We can continue to message, but to actually enforce and put a law in place for something like this is very difficult for me to understand, for us to be that restrictive from county government. I believe in messaging, I believe in leadership, I believe in leading by example, but this, I think, is...
This is an educational and voluntary initiative should happen. First of all, we do a major education on it.
Sure.
And ask for voluntary response to it. And I don't think we need enabling legislation to do that. We can do it simply on our own. Start with a major, and we have the people here to do it. Start with a major education program. Start with asking for people to volunteer into this, and it catches on after a while. I think if you look at the younger generation here, come from the green schools, they're already doing this. And the only thing we need to go to mandate it is going to be very difficult.
I mean, honestly, the Crying Indian had a huge impact, on pollution. The Crying Indian had a huge impact. It's all about messaging. So if we can find the appropriate messaging, whether it's in the schools, the libraries, to large businesses, communities, saying, hey, here are the impacts, and I think that, to me, is a much
Right, okay,
more palatable
I put that out there, I don't expect anyone to go along with it, that's fine. I just want to put it out there. But the fact is, I think the education's already being done. It's already in the schools. We already have our environmental, what's our group? Environmental Advisory Council.
EAC.
They already out there doing all this. I mean, look at the thing they just did on styrofoam and so forth. It's all, we're doing everything we can in that vein. I really do believe that we are, and I think we're doing a really good job with it. However, I think that another step has to be taken. That's my opinion, and I'll just let it go at that, and we'll move on to the next one.
That's fair.
Well, ask the
That's fair.
EAC to start a program on this, to start it.
Well, we did this, I mean, I don't know, let's move on.
we
Let's
did.
just say move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gaming.
Gaming?
That was mine, and this is pretty simple. We've got nonprofits, fire companies specifically, that have raffles, and they want to be able to pay on Sunday. And we sort of missed the boat on this one. We being the delegation and us, we didn't present it the right way last year. But it merely says, look, you know, state lottery pays out on Sunday and everybody else does. We need the ability for our folks to be able to pay out on Sunday as well.
Off-track betting, everything else is out there. Why can't
Right.
we do it on those? nights?
Specific example, and I don't want to lengthen this, but a couple of the fire companies have calendars that you buy, and they pay based on the state lottery. Well, the state lottery draws numbers on Sunday,
Yeah.
but the fire companies can't pay, so they're doubling up on Monday if your numbers get picked on Sunday. I mean, it's ridiculous. We're allowing alcohol sales now on Sunday.
Yeah.
Let's just get rid of this. This is allows the opportunity for more fundraising opportunities for nonprofits. That's what it is.
As long as the raffles don't involve plastic bags.
Is that a motion?
I have a question. Is there a typo? Is it really supposed to be 1 a.m. or is it 1 p.m.? To
1 a-
operate after 1 a.m.?
1 a.m., yes.
Yes,
Oh.
in the morning.
Yeah. So in other words, now now Sunday's involved.
So it goes through Saturday evening.
Right.
Starting at 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., whatever events. So
Right.
therefore, they're allowed. Yeah. And things don't have to shut off.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're
Yeah.
not up at that time?
No, I'm not.
Matt locks on.
But
Unless you call me. No.
I agree.
So y'all good with that?
Yeah.
That was,
I think it's a good idea.
okay.
Yeah.
You want to do an
So
official
vote on that?
Motion to let that one roll.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I like that motion.
Thanks very much. I mean, let's get cut to the chase. The gaming instant ticket lottery thing was also mine that failed in 2018, and this one was I was approached by the Elks Lodge in Westminster. Work with me here, Mike, because you and I kind of worked tag team on this thing, and it didn't get very far.
Well, there was a statewide
Well, they're right.
version as well.
Right.
Senator Young moved that
Correct.
forward, and that failed
And that
statewide.
failed as well.
Yeah.
But there are organizations that can sell tickets over the counter or have instant lottery machines in their establishments, but yet there are service organizations that give back to our veterans, et cetera, that can't. So the Elks came to me and said, hey, Steve, why can't we have instant lottery machines like the whoever does? I don't know.
Well, it's the veterans organization, so I think it's VFWs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And American Legion.
And American Legions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, why can't we resubmit it?
I don't know. What do you think, Mike? Resubmitting this?
Oh, yeah, my thought was hook up with Senator Young and see where he thinks the vulnerability is, and if we can't move forward a little stronger
Okay.
this year. I have to admit, I didn't follow that state one closely, so I
Right.
don't know
Yeah,
where
well, you and I talked
the
about that.
opposition
Right.
came, but it likely came from those organizations that
That said,
currently
hey, don't.
have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
You know, share the wealth.
Right.
I agree. We should go forward with it again.
Okay. Was that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next three that are on there, we don't have to take up, we already did, basically. So I guess that we need a motion to adjourn.
No.
Something
Hey,
else.
Real quick, just one
Oh,
other thing.
we gotta vote. I forgot about that,
One
too.
other thing that I brought up, and Tim, I think you hit the nail on the head. I had a guy that's an election judge here in the county come to me and say, you know, they get paid to do their election judge, but they get paid like $12.10 to be there all day. I mean, it's more than that, but, you know, you get my point. And they have to report that as income. and he was looking for a way to not have to report that as income so that the taxes wouldn't come out of it. So it's above our heads locally. That's an IRS thing.
It's a different pay grade.
Yeah, that's a different pay grade. So that's, I'm not going to even suggest, I might whisper in one of our legislators' ears that, that maybe they could, you know, just to prompt them on this, because I think, honestly, I think it's a good idea. Reality, I think these guys get, I don't know how much an hour.
Not much, it's really good.
It's very little. And then on top of that, you know,
It's
by
so
the
much
way-
a day, isn't it?
Yeah, it's for the day.
Yeah, it's for the day.
Because I did it.
You can find out the exact amount.
But again, if it's reportable income, it's reportable income, and, you know, 1099, I mean, that's
I know.
W-9, you got,
So
you gotta do.
So it scoots into an area that we don't want to get involved in, but, so, you know, I brought it up and I said, well, we'll give it a shot, and Tim took it and didn't get too far with it because we don't want to start, I don't want to go up against the IRS.
Yeah, I don't want to poke them again.
Yeah, so there's that. So forget I said anything, Eric.
They sent me $14 this week. I was amazed.
If I could just make one more point for your consideration, particularly as you move forward on these ones that have been tabled. My short experience with the delegation has been that consensus is really necessary to move anything forward with them. My sense is if it comes in without a consensus from the board, it's kind of DOA. So let's try to work and come to a consensus on that. Just a suggestion.
Mr. Fowler,
Okay, this.
will you be at the senior opioid advisory meet? Excellent.
Yeah, but we won't be able to vote.
Unless he's
we
gonna
can
be there
meet
to
just
observe it.
prior to the
I mean-
meeting at 3 o'clock or something. But the
listen,
fact is, I don't want to go into it all. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
not that opposed to these things. I just think they need to be tweaked. So
I
I'm good. If
mind
you
that.
guys get to tweak the language,
Exactly.
I'm good with saying go with it.
And same.
I don't need to
I'm
vote on
supportive.
it. I'm supportive. Just want to make
We're
that
all
clear.
supportive of it, I
That
think.
way
I
we don't
think
have to
anybody
try to
not
meet
supportive.
Right.
before.
Right, okay.
I'm good. If you can
Absolutely.
get the tweaked language, go for it.
Yep.
If they want to tweak, I mean, if
Right.
whatever they suggest.
Yeah.
Right, okay,
Exactly.
that's fine. All right, then we do have consensus.
Okay.
All right,
Perfect.
all right, thank you. Now we're going to be voting on officers for the board.
By the way,
Correct.
for the two guys, new guys, Mike does a tremendous job down there. We are very beneficial. It's very beneficial to the county to have somebody who knew everybody's name and knew everybody's door.
I told you I knew where the bathroom was.
But he does a tremendous job,
He
and
does.
already last year had an impact on several things that went on down in that quaint little village. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And you do a good job, I really do believe that. I love the communication back and forth, great job.
Okay, next step?
Next.
All right, voting for
All right,
officers.
so
Vote for president.
Ballot in alphabetical order, take one, pass it down, write, check, or X, whoever you want to be the president. Fold it in half or thirds or little paper airplanes.
Can we
Give
just
that
do this
to
for
me,
you
I will
guys?
count them.
Who's counting this?
I'll just do this for you.
Well, I'd like
Send it
legal
down
to
this
count
way.
it.
I'm gonna scribble.
Oh, wait a
chairman
minute,
in.
you are legal.
I just don't get paid that.
Can it be a write-in?
You can do it
It's a
right.
joke.
Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck.
Gosh.
See, now that I think about it, I'd really like to confront the IRS. Wouldn't that be fun?
No. No.
Come on, Ed.
No. As a man who has a small business
Well,
and deals with more 1099s you
never
can
win.
imagine,
I know.
and more
I had
W-9s.
You can never win.
I had one too, and, you know, the paperwork was
It's
intense.
a small business, not small.
Yeah. So, whatever.
It is, and that's a tough one.
Anything we can do to alleviate some of that for these folks.
Okay, so the next president of our board will be Commissioner Wentz.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So next, we vote for the vice president. Please do not vote for Commissioner Wentz. You can vote for any of your other.
the same names on the ballot?
Same names are on the ballot. Commissioner Wance is still on the ballot.
Minus Mickey Mouse. I get to cross out Commissioner Wance right now. Okay.
There you don't make any mistakes. So same thing. We'll do that. Attention. We need a drum roll or something.
Yeah, not really.
I'll take lunch instead.
Was anybody going to hear Jack today?
Didn't have
Where?
time.
We didn't have the time.
unfortunately.
He was speaking at the chamber luncheon today
When
about
did he get there?
economic
Oh,
development
Jack?
stuff, but I knew we couldn't get it in, but,
Got too much
Yeah.
happening today.
yeah. So, it's always, you gotta make sure Jack is,
Vice President of the Board will be Commissioner Rothstein.
Congratulations, Commissioner.
Commissioner?
congratulations.
Now, we've changed from secretary to second vice president, so don't vote for Commissioners Wance or Rothstein, please.
Cross them out.
So far, you followed directions well. I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Should we answer that in the form of a question? Thank you. Oops, sorry.
Whoa, sorry about
That's
that.
so
was that?
sensitive, yeah.
Yes, they are.
All right.
How long does that thing have to stay on?
8 weeks.
8 weeks?
What, by the way, I'll ask you off camera what you did. I didn't.
Wrestling.
Seriously?
Those kids hate it when they can't score points.
The second vice president of the board will be Commissioner Weaver. So thank you, gentlemen. When we have our afternoon session, we won't be sitting like this. It'll be a work session down here on the floor, so it really won't matter where you sit. But next time on open session, next Thursday, unless there's objections, the president of the board will sit in the middle. The first vice president will sit where Commissioner Wance now sits, and you get to say where you are.
Good, I get to sit next to you.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason that the vote came out that way, because I knew you do. So anyway, that's it. That's it. I
We have
said
a legal
before,
statement or what?
There are there are a couple letters here, a couple retirement letters for all of you to sign, and one letter it's ministerial, appointing Rob Burke as the tax collector. We have to do this
No.
each year.
I hate to do that to him.
So, well, he's a nice guy, but
What's that mean?
anyway, so
All right,
that's.
and we need a motion to adjourn until 1
Thank
o'clock.
you.
Yes, sir.
Or
Motion to adjourn.
Recess, I'm sorry,
Recess.
recess to
Yeah,
1
that's right.
o'clock.
Motion to recess.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.